Welcome, C3RF members and Canadian citizens across the land. It's a pleasure to have you with us today on another C3RF, that's Canadian Citizens for Charter Rights and Freedoms video session of In Hot. Remember, In Hot is a fighter pilot term that refers to getting a clearance to roll in on target with weapons fully armed and loaded. And today we're rolling in on a curious situation in Delta, British Columbia. The situation entails the Delta Hospice Society in British Columbia, where a small private palliative care facility is having a very difficult time. It's fighting for its survival in the face of demands that it embrace the medical assistance in dying protocols. This is a palliative care institute that believes in traditional protocols of making life as benefiting as possible right up until the last breath is drawn, and they're having a very difficult time. Now today we're rolling in hot with a superb winger in the form of Angelina Ireland. Angela was born and raised in Winnipeg. She attended the University of Winnipeg, where she received a Bachelor of Honors degree, and then went on to Ottawa and received a master's degree in political science from Carleton University. Afterwards, she went to live in London, England, where she entered the world of credit and finance, working for British Telecom. Upon returning to Canada, she lived in Toronto and then moved to Vancouver and worked as an accountant. 15 years ago, she started her own business and now works with other small businesses. After a diagnosis of cancer, she became a client of the Delta Hospice Society. When she recovered to good health, she joined the board of directors in 2018. After the last annual general meeting, she was elected to be the president of the board of directors of Delta Hospice Society. Welcome, Angelina. It's a real pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
And I have to ask, in your introduction there, you just can't help but notice that you're a cancer survivor. And you cite the fact that you were a client of Delta Hospice Society. I take that you weren't a patient, but could you explain your relationship as a client with the DHS?
Yeah, so the Delta Hospice Society had two buildings. One was the hospice itself, 10-bed palliative care facility, and next door a 7,500 square foot supportive care center. That's where the programs took place. So I came in as a client of the programming, and I spent some time there and did some counseling when I was on my cancer journey.
I see. I guess as you were there for a period of time, I would suggest, or I would think that you had an opportunity to meet patients of the hospice themselves who were in the process of dying. Is that the case?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was so lucky. I was lucky. I recovered, but some of my friends were not so lucky, and they spent their last days at the hospice. Mm-hmm. So yes, I was a client of the supportive care center. My friends were actual, patients in the hospice, and they passed away there. So yeah, I know both sides of that story.
I can understand how you'd have such a strong feeling and such a strong bond with the society, having gone through that situation, and knowing probably many people who were in the last days of their lives. That's quite incredible. Now, the hospice itself, my understanding is that it it started out as, and still is, I imagine, a private organization built entirely on voluntary funds and donations. Is that the case?
Exactly. So the Delta Hospice Society is a private society. It's been in existence for over 30 years. So, and the mandate is to be a palliative care organization to educate the public about what palliative care is. And ultimately, what happened about 11 or 12 years ago was the society went out and fundraised enough money, $8.5 million, and built the hospice and the supportive care center next door. So then it became an owner and operator of the hospice itself. What happened was we made a deal with the Fraser Health Authority, And with our money, they allowed us, we got a 35-year lease, a land lease, and we built those buildings on top of that land. So we had a wonderful relationship with Fraser Health Authority and the BC government, and everyone was so happy to be involved with us until, MAID, until euthanasia became law. And back in the day, they were pleased and proud to be a part of a hospice and palliative care organization. But today, they don't want anything to do with us because we're, a hospice and a palliative care organization. With the onslaught of medical assistance in dying, the whole idea of palliative care is apparently going through some kind of revision, some kind of transformation. And the very basic principles of which we have founded this society on for so many years has been attacked. And we, are very adamant to say that palliative care does not include euthanasia.
Okay.
Period.
That's the standing. That's the opinion of the society. And just for our audience, when we talk about medical assistance in dying, we're talking about an act that came into being after almost 2 decades of hard discussion and being turned down. It became law in 2016, I believe. The original act came out in 2016. The act at the time called for some limitations. You could not undergo or ask for medical assistance in dying unless there was it could be reasonably foreseen that you were close to your end days. Now that act underwent revision very recently, and in March of 2021, it was amended. And now the reasonable foreseen circumstance of death is no longer there. And now basically people can, the scope has been expanded, and now people can partake of MAID without being close to death. I also understand, and this is quite controversial, but I also understand that the new act, or the Reformed Act, has a rider in it that allows for a 2-year study to expand the act even further to cover mental illness as a possible cause for requesting medical assistance in dying. So that's the kind of the lay of the land here. And now your organization believes in the traditional meaning of palliative care and wants to step away from what is an evolving situation with MAID, a situation which, by the way, is getting somewhat very controversial in places like Netherlands, where they've had it for longer. And now people who actually are mentally ill are dying under the Dutch law. So what really surprises me, Angelina, is the zealotry that I take a look at what's going on with your situation, and you're trying to survive, but it's like it's a very zealous attempt to do away totally with traditional thoughts on palliative care, and it looks like it's coming from all governments. Could you comment on that? Who are you having to fight?
Exactly. We stand on a 50-year medical discipline. That's all we want to do. We just want to take care of people until their natural end. However, that is apparently unacceptable. So, we didn't want to wade into the debate about MAID. It's good or bad. All we wanted to say was that is not what we do. That is not our business. In fact, in our facility right next door, 1 minute away, is the Delta Hospital, and you can have MAID there. And in fact, we will facilitate a transfer. No questions asked. We will facilitate a transfer. That again was unacceptable. You see, so what happened with our society is that we are private, but we got into a contract with the government.
Yes.
So $1.5 million a year to provide the 10 palliative care beds. When they said that we must provide MAID or lose our contract, we said, well, we tried to negotiate. Well, we'll take half of that money. That's a very good deal for the taxpayer. That brings us under a threshold where we could opt out of having to provide euthanasia. And the Fraser Health Authority said no, Then we went back to them and we said, well, how about we don't take any money from you? How about we'll privately fundraise, we'll provide the same services we always had to the public health care system, and it won't cost you a penny. That's a great deal for the taxpayer, in fact.
Yeah.
And they absolutely said no. So, look, when this whole thing started, we weren't looking for a fight. We just wanted to be left alone in our 10 little beds, take care of the people that want that kind of service at end of life. But it became very clear that that wasn't going to be allowed. And for some reason, in our insistence that we will not provide the procedure of MAID, we were seen as defiant.
You were anti-MAID. And it seems like there are so many narratives out there that if you go against certain narratives, you are anti this, anti that, you're anti-MAID, you're anti-vax, you're anti-death, I guess, is what you are, but you are anti. That is such a loaded term. Sorry, Angelina, go ahead. Yeah.
It's true. And we really weren't. All we were doing was standing on our discipline, our medical discipline, and and being prepared to provide alternatives for people who did not want that kind of end of life service. But for that stand, we were attacked by every level of government, municipal, provincial, even federal. Ultimately our contract was canceled.
How was the federal government involved in your fight? That's interesting.
Well, this is interesting because, from the beginning now, when MAID was introduced, they also introduced a little bill called Framework for Palliative Care.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and that was to provide support and protection for palliative care in Canada. Now, that one was unanimously passed by the House shortly after C-14 was passed. However, nobody speaks of that anymore. Apparently that's gone by the wayside. There were supposed to be billions of dollars that were supposed to be dedicated to that protection, to our protection here at the Delta Hospice Society.
Okay.
So we actually went up in front of the Senate in last February when they were debating about Bill C-7. And we were going to tell them our situation. We were going to ask for help, ask for some kind of immunity from this bill that was coming down that would ultimately destroy what we're trying to do. And we at first were invited, and then we were told, don't bother showing up. So I was going to give a submission to the senators. And then I was told the night before, don't bother showing up, send somebody else in your place because I don't want to hear from you. So I needed to send somebody else in my place. So listen, the federal government just did a bunch of virtue signaling around palliative care, and ultimately has now introduced legislation that will continue to erode what is a national treasure.
Yes, the legislation that protected palliative care, it is still in place, and it is still viable. Okay. The other thing I tweaked when you said federal government was the fact that the federal government basically owns our federal charter of freedoms and rights, and now we have a situation. I think we have a situation where the rights of your organization, of the people who want to partake of a more traditional palliative style of care, their right to assemble and to associate and to organize to do that is imperiled by, and it should be protected, not just by the palliative protection law, but by the charter itself. Have you used charter arguments to progress your cause, and how were they received?
Yes. Well, you see, what happened was, first we were attacked by the government. Fraser Health Authority and the BC Minister of Health himself, Adrian Dix, came out to the public square and said, we're not putting up with the Delta Hospice Society. We're going to take over their facility. So then what happened was we had another set of, I'll call them activists, because that's what they are. They're activists that decided that they're going to take over the Delta Hospice Society, and they're going to infiltrate us with all their members, and then they're going to vote us out, and then the Delta Hospice Society will go lockstep with the government and start providing MAID.
Oh, wow.
And so this group was very active, very, very visible and public, so we could see exactly who they were. And so when we saw their memberships come in, we said, no, You can't be a member of this society because this is not what we stand for. And in fact, in our bylaws, number 4, it says that acceptance by members is at the discretion of the board of directors. Well, they didn't care for that. And they took us to court. They took us to the BC Supreme Court to try to force us to accept them into our palliative care organization.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got to the courts, we lost. And Justice Fitzpatrick said that we have to accept everybody who gives us $10, basically in the world, period.
Well, what about your freedom of association and assembly? What
exactly?
The
so
judge? The judge didn't deem this to be a charter case. He didn't. Is that how he got out of it? He ran away from the charge.
That's right. And so what we did, we appealed that. We appealed it to the BC Court of Appeal in British Columbia. Now that's the highest court of BC, and we said this is a charter challenge. We didn't stand on our principles of a 30-year association with members who promote palliative care. And according to all these definitions, including the World Health Organization, palliative care does nothing to hasten death. Therefore, we do not accept euthanasia in this practice. The BC Court of Appeal rejected our charter arguments. We said this is a freedom of conscience argument and a freedom of association, that you would allow people to come into a private organization, take over, assume the assets of the traditional membership, and change the mandate. And the BC Court of Appeal rejected it and said, no, we're not even going to look at that. Forget it. So then we wanted to go to the we wanted to go to the Supreme Court of Canada.
Yes.
Because what had happened, this is precedent setting for every private society in Canada, that if a well-organized group infiltrates your society, right, there's very little you can do about it. They change your mandate, they take your assets, and then you become whatever it is the majority wants you to be.
Yes.
We wanted to go to the Supreme Court of Canada about this. And the Supreme Court of Canada refused to hear our case.
Oh.
So that was it.
Okay.
So now Delta Hospice Society is open to anybody in the world who wants to be a member.
Yes.
All they need to do is give us $10, and they can be a voting member, and they can come in and they can help to, form policy, tell us what to do, is particularly in regards to euthanasia and MAID inside of our society.
How far has this infiltration progressed? Is it at the point now where the membership is of such a breakout that they do have voting power now, and this is all going to happen in the very near future?
No, because what happened was, they tried to have everybody in the world be able to be a member, and then they went to Dine with Dignity Canada.
Yes.
And they wanted a national membership drive.
Dying for Dignity Canada is a national lobbyist group for medical assistance in dying, right?
That's right. That's right. So they went there. We got a guy on the ground here in Vancouver who worked with this group. They went on a huge campaign. They literally went door to door in Delta trying to sign up members who poisoned the community against us about our motives and who we are and what we want to do. To try to boost that membership. But what they didn't expect was that people across this country got to know our story. Oh. And they stood to protect us. And they became members of the Delta Hospice Society. So in effect, their insistence that we become an open society kind of backfired on them, because now we have people all over the country who say, no, allow these people to be a palliative care organization. No bullying by the governments, no bullying by, national lobby groups.
Yes.
Allow these people to just do what they want to do, be who they are.
And you have a facility 1 minute down the road that will facilitate that MAID requirement if you so choose. So no one is being left out. No one is being discriminated against.
Well, actually, they are, because the government took that facility from us. That 35-year land lease that we had with the Fraser Health Authority, when we refused to do MAID, they canceled our lease.
Oh, so where are you now? What facilities are you in now?
Well, they kicked us out of our hospice. They literally evicted us from our hospice. They evicted us from our 7,500 square foot supportive care center, and they took over the ownership and operation of our buildings. Oh.
Okay.
So now the Fraser Health Authority has our hospice, and they provide euthanasia there. They have our supportive care center, which is sat vacant since the end of March
Okay.
2021.
So the 10 beds that you used to have for traditional palliative care are no longer in use.
Oh, they're in use. They took over and they reopened it 2 weeks later. They
But
took our hospice.
Yeah. Okay.
They reopened it 2 weeks later.
They're no
And
longer
now
in
they
use
offer-
they're no longer in use for your purposes. So at this point in time, there is no facility in Delta that offers traditional palliative care in the tradition that is 50 years old. There's no facility at all. Oh, I see. Okay. But you have control of the board of directors, right?
Yes, we have the society.
You
So
have the society.
they took assets from the society, is what they did. We still have a society. We still have a membership of 10,000 strong.
Wow, this is like Snidely Whiplash and Jim Crow era of the United States or something. This is crazy. You're getting evicted.
Crazy.
The only thing that could make it worse is that they evicted you in the wintertime. Did they evict you in the wintertime?
Well, it was March.
It was March. Well,
It was March.
it's winter in Ontario, I'll tell you. Okay,
Yeah.
but not out in BC, I guess.
So listen, we have other assets. The society has other assets. We have a store, we have a property, we have a business that we generate revenue for our programming, right? And we have a vision.
Mhm.
And our vision is to build another hospice. This time, we will build it without anything to do with the government, not on government land. And this hospice will be a sanctuary. This hospice will not provide MAID because this will be an authentic palliative care facility. And I'll tell you something, there are many people out there who want the kind of services of which we provide.
Well,
they don't want to be in a facility which next to them, the person is going to be killed.
I have, I mentioned before we started recording, Angelina, that I have members, C3RF members who have talked to me about their concern over the fact that MAID is not a great thing for certain communities. The Indigenous community, for example, has a very, very difficult time with suicide on their lands and in their communities, and the whole prospect of MAID just might work to make that even worse. And so, yes, I can see where you're saying there's a very, very real argument for having this kind of traditional service available. Many communities, and that's one community. There are probably many others as well.
Well, and we want to get in partnership with communities that want this kind of vision. Listen, when we say palliative care, for the most part, we do talk about those people who are older and infirm and vulnerable.
Yes.
And what we're saying is our philosophy of care is to take care of our treasures, our parents, our grandparents. These are our treasures. And we will have the honor to take care of them until their last days, their natural end. And we live in a society now that does not respect elderly people. In fact, I would go so far as to say that there's a war on the elderly in this country, as as controversial as that may be, but we've become notorious, so I can pretty much say whatever I want. It's going to make people mad, but it is true. And we want to say that we need what we call sanctuaries that would give us the honor to take care of our people until their natural end, where we will not introduce MAID.
You think that would be right in line with the charter, which guarantees the right to life, but somehow that charter is being rewritten or reread or read in to be freedom to die,
Yes.
which is not the same thing.
We now have a right to die in this country and no right to live, no right to life-affirming services.
Yes.
With the introduction of Bill C7, now you don't even have to be dying to get killed.
Now C7, that's the most recent MAID bill of 2021.
Yes. All you need to be is in an intolerable situation. That's the law. And you know what? Somebody who's living under a bridge in the middle of winter, that's a pretty intolerable situation.
Yes.
So we open the door to not only the infirm, the elderly, the vulnerable, the homeless, the disabled, right? All of these people could be argued are living in an intolerable situation, which now would qualify for state-sanctioned assisted suicide.
Wow. Well, what a waste of potential and life. I mean, that doesn't seem like it's the right road to go down. Not at all. Not at all. So how is the so you're looking to create a network of sanctuaries?
Yes.
Is this a national network of sanctuaries?
Well, we don't see that there's really any other option. I mean, you know, we don't want to fight with the government. Yeah, because there's no use getting into the courts and spending all our money and just being basically, they'll just justify and legitimize what just happened to us.
Yes.
What we feel is that, you know, we need to open up another avenue. Basically, we're saying thank you, but no thank you to, you know, government supplied services. And we want to start another private network of, in our case, sanctuaries for
Yes.
those in their last days. That will follow an authentic palliative care model.
Okay, and that way you would be free from any government-controlled leasing or arrangements or contracts, which gives them the authority to use the charter against the right of life, against you, is how this whole topsy-turvy situation has become. So you have to get away from the government and previously government protections through the charter, because they don't work anymore, to do what you would like to do to help people. You have to move yourself away from the government and move yourself away from the charter.
Absolutely.
That seems to be a bit
moment,
backwards to me.
Yeah, in this moment we do. If we want to survive as a society, and if we want to, you know, promote and protect what we consider to be very important. And, you know, there's 95% apparently of people in this country who want a palliative care experience at the end of life. Only 30% would actually have access to palliative care. Only 5% who want MAID. So there's this whole thing going on. Well, listen, you want MAID, you go ahead, have it. I don't. So, but for my tax dollars, there's actually no place for me to go to get the kind of service that I want.
Yes.
So I pay into a system and I have no recourse to actually get what I want, because a minority has now taken over the policy, right? And taken over the kind of services that I can enjoy. So, you know, here I am disenfranchised. They still get all my money, but I've got nowhere to go.
Boy.
And you know, listen, we've got to do something.
Yeah, it's everywhere you turn, you're getting bollocked. It seems, and I think what we have here is in Canada. It seems like there are narratives in play that if you disagree with them or go against them or respectfully just go your own way, you're not allowed. You're not allowed to escape the narrative. We have many, you know, the narrative that vaccines are the only way out of COVID-19. This narrative that you have, that MAID has to be the prima solution for end of care life. All these narratives that are unassailable are really taking away the ability of Canadians, individual Canadians, to pursue their dreams and their charitable acts. And
indeed, and you know what? I'll go one step further to say that MAID, or euthanasia, has now become the king of all procedures in British Columbia. You know, it has to be in every single publicly funded bed. But I'll tell you something. Here in Delta, well, we have no maternity ward. We can't have our babies here in Delta, even in that Delta hospital. No, you can't. You got to take yourself and you got to waddle yourself over to Vancouver or Richmond, because you can't have your baby in Delta. However, you've got to make sure that every single bed in Delta provides euthanasia.
Wow.
So, you know, you got to see what are the priorities here now.
Priorities, and the priorities are in line with the narratives, and the narratives seem to line up against the everyday individual Canadian who has a different way of thinking about things, the minority. But, I thought the charter was supposed to protect the minorities from the majorities, but it seems like if you've got a big enough lobby group and enough money behind you, you can override any minority you want. Very interesting. Now, how can people help you, Angelina? How maybe you could direct them to your websites, or maybe there's something else that people could do, C3RF members could do to help you.
Yeah, we do need people. We do need people to stand with us and support us in this vision that we have. And what we ask them to do is to become a member of our society.
Okay.
Because in doing that, you protect the board of directors that have literally gone out on a limb for freedom. You can go to deltahospice.org. You can become a member. It's $10.
Okay.
$10, the best $10 you will spend in the pursuit of freedom in this country.
Wow.
Because, what it says is that, we stand with these people who only want to provide end-of-life care in the traditional palliative model. That's all. Look, we're not insurrectionists. We're not, all we want to do is just to be left alone to do some good work. That's all.
In the days before MAID, you were, as you said, you were loved. You were loved in the community by the community.
And now we're hated.
Great work.
Now we're literally hated. They took a hospice from us. So the community has the hospice. They can go there. They can get MAID. They can do whatever they like. But you see, that's not good enough for some people. That they now want to take the assets of the society. We have about $4 million worth of assets. Wow. They want to take those assets and they want to somehow, streamline them into an organization that will go work lockstep with the government to promote MAID and euthanasia. See, the Delta Hospice Society now has been given a platform to speak about, end-of-life care. Well, they want to silence that.
Yes.
Make sure we're quiet because we're getting too much attention. So silence us, take those assets, dovetail them into some kind of government, programming to promote MAID. And so what we're saying was, with your $10, you stand with us for independence. You stand with us for basically a new model of healthcare and how we're going to go about to do it. And you stand, honestly, you stand for freedom. You stand for what democracy should and always, will be, because what we have right now is not. There's all kinds of things it is. It certainly isn't democracy.
Well, it certainly doesn't seem to be in line with our Prime Minister Trudeau's adage of diversity, inclusion, and equity. It seems to be far removed. The treatment that your society is receiving seems to be far, far removed from those noble sentiments. But anyway, you said that people could go to your site, Delta Hospice
.org. Delta Hospice.
Okay.
.org.
Okay.
You click on the membership, buy membership for $10. We will be able to keep you updated as to what's happening with us, what's going on. We are under constant attack. It's an unbelievable situation that just a few people can be demonized to the extent that we have been. And almost like I said, seen as, when we ask for freedom, we're seen as agitators, instigators, resistance, everything you can imagine.
You're anti-people. You're anti-people kind. It's crazy. But I always get asked, people write to me and they say, Russ, what can we do? We're getting crushed. We don't have the power of the government. We don't have all the resources the government has, and they're crushing us. And I guess I get more and more of these letters every day. And I guess, folks, the one thing we can do is we can look to organizations like Angelina's, Delta Hospice Society, and we can support them, and we can join them, and we can have our voice through them in the cause of individual rights and freedoms.
It's true, because listen, politics is downstream of culture. We must change the culture before we can expect any politician to take us seriously and do anything.
Yes.
This Delta Hospice Society is a place in the culture of which you can have an impact. Allow us to proceed with our vision of creating sanctuaries in this country and partnering with other organizations in order to do that. This is how we change the landscape.
Yeah, you're right about culture.
Right?
You're speaking, what you're doing, Angelina, is speaking to a culture of life. And that culture used to be very, very strong in this country, and it seems to be giving way to a culture of death. And I think changing that culture is probably basic to everything that needs to be done. And Angelina, it's such a pleasure to have you with us at C3RF in hot. And I'll be watching closely to see how things unfold. I really wish you all the luck in developing that national network of sanctuaries. I think it's a great cause. And thank you so much for your efforts in this. It's
Thank you,
really,
Russ.
really laudable.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, for listening to our story, for supporting us. This is a grassroots effort. This is about the people that stand up for other people. So thank you.
Well, I'm going to be keeping an eye on this, and hopefully keeping in touch as well, Angelina. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.